you ready to prime your focus, to move past scattered days and channel your energy into what really matters? This is Primed for ADHD, the podcast for high-functioning women who want simple, brain-friendly ways to feel more in control. I'm your host, Andrea Toole, ADHD coach and educator. Welcome back to the ADHD podcast, or if this is your first time, welcome. I'm Andrea Toole, ADHD coach and educator. Today's episode is one I've wanted to record for a while because it comes up constantly in my work, in my inbox, and in conversations with women who are trying to figure out what kind of support they really need. The topic is coaching versus therapy. If you have ADHD, especially if you were diagnosed later in life, you might have wondered whether coaching makes sense, whether therapy is enough, or whether you should be doing both. A lot of people feel unsure where coaching fits, or whether it's even legitimate. Others assume coaching is just therapy without credentials, or that therapy should cover everything, and that coaching isn't necessary. And I understand that a lot of people without credentials or any courses at all call themselves coaches. And for a long time, I resisted calling myself a coach because I didn't feel like I had the right credential, even though it was a coaching credential. And it seems like pretty much anyone can call themselves a coach these days. But coaching and therapy are very different, and they're both legitimate. So, none of those things that I threw out is right. None of those assumptions is really correct. So today I want to slow this down and explain in practical terms what coaching does, what therapy does, where they overlap, where they don't, and how to think about which kind of which kind of support makes sense for you now. This episode is not about choosing sides, it's about getting clear. And it might be shorter than previous episodes, but we'll see how it goes. I scripted this one for information, not length. And what I won't do is rewrite and re-record like I did last week, which started at 8 minutes and I eventually got to 20. So the reason coaching and therapy get confused is simple. On the surface, they look similar. Both involve talking. Both involve reflection. Both can feel supportive, validating, and grounding. Both can help you understand yourself better. And for people with ADHD, especially women in midlife, there's often been a long history of being misunderstood, misdiagnosed, or unsupported. So when something finally helps, it can be hard to tell what kind of help it actually is. Another reason for the confusion is that therapy has historically been positioned as the default, and coaching is newer and less regulated. And that makes people understandably cautious, as I said earlier. And there's also a lot of overlap in language. You'll hear words like growth, support, awareness, and change used in both spaces, but the focus, structure, and outcomes are different. A simple way to think about this: therapy is primarily about understanding, healing, and processing. Coaching is primarily about applying, building, and moving forward. That doesn't mean therapy is only about the past, or that coaching ignores emotions. It means the center of gravity is different, and that distinction matters, especially with ADHD. Let's talk about therapy first, because therapy plays an essential role, and I want to be very clear about this. Therapy is often the best place to work through trauma, hardships, grief, depression, anxiety disorders, and deep emotional regulation challenges. If your nervous system is overwhelmed, if you're dealing with unresolved experiences that are showing up in your body and emotions, therapy is not optional, it is foundational. I've had several therapists, and the last one helped me the most before she moved away to another country, and I would happily do therapy again. I believe that everybody should go through at least one round of therapy by the time they're in their mid-40s. Decades of experience are like lifetimes. You collect patterns, grief and trauma, collect them all. Intergenerational trauma, experiences from your formative years, such as childhood, high school, and your post-education, early adult 20s. All these things imprint. Relationships leave emotional souvenirs. Therapy helps you make sense of your internal world. It helps you understand where patterns came from. It helps you develop insight and emotional safety. Sometimes it helps you remember things that you maybe forgot that would be useful in your healing. Maybe things that your nervous system put out of your mind. So there's a lot to be said about therapy. I'm a big fan of therapy. And for many people with ADHD, therapy is also where shame gets unpacked. Years of being told you're lazy, too much, too sensitive, selfish, irresponsible, inconsiderate, or inconsistent. That can leave deep marks, man. Many children with ADHD, they're bullied for being different. And if you grew up before ADHD was recognized, as I was, as a late Gen Xer born in the mid-70s, ADHD wasn't part of the conversation around bullying. Bullying or self-esteem or the other effects of ADHD. The isolation, and just all this crap. I was writing this down to read back, and I couldn't think of it all, and I still can't think of it all. There are so many examples of how ADHD affects children that then traumatize and just that you carry with you. And if you were bullied as I was, that experience might have branded you with self-esteem issues and scars. I mean, that was a theme of my own therapy, and I mean, I got rid of a lot of my self-esteem issues decades ago, but it's amazing what a little therapy digging helps you bring up. Therapy gives you space to process all of that without feeling rushed towards solutions. And if you're in acute distress, struggling to function emotionally, or feeling unsafe, therapy is the right place to start. And coaching is not a replacement for that. An ethical coach will tell you that. If a coach has been trained to follow the International Coaching Federation framework, as I was, the coach will tell you that from the start, before even or at your first session, that coaching is not therapy. We're taught to communicate the distinctions between coaching, consulting, psychotherapy, and other supportive functions. So now let's talk about coaching, because this is where many misconceptions live. Sorry, pause there because I scrolled for a moment. I'm just gonna say that. Let's talk about coaching. Here it is. ADHD coaching is forward-focused and practical. It assumes you already have insight, or that insight alone hasn't been enough. Some of the people I work with, some of the clients I work with have been to therapy, and they come to me because they're ready for that next step. Many of the women I work with know why things are hard. They've talked about it extensively. They understand their problems intellectually. What they struggle with is translating awareness into daily life. And this is where coaching comes in. Coaching focuses on how you plan, how you follow through, how you manage energy, not just time, how you design systems that fit your brain, how you stop relying on adrenaline and urgency to function. And it might help you see why you've been functioning the way you have been functioning, and provide alternatives to that may be either more sustainable or sustainable at this point in your life. Because as I discussed last week, your needs change over the course of your life. And what worked in your 20s and 30s won't necessarily work in your 40s. So having an ADHD coach, well, ADD and ADHD, that can help you figure all that out. Coaching in general, not just ADHD coaching, life coaching, ADHD coaching, any of it, it's collaborative, it's structured, it's grounded in your real life, not ideal behavior. And again, if the coach follows the International Coaching Federation framework, it emphasizes a collaborative approach, which means it's client-centered. The client, that is, potentially any of you listening, guides their coaching journey, and that helps them turn insights into action. In coaching, we're not dissecting your past every week. We're looking at what's happening now, what's getting in your way, and what small, meaningful changes can create stability. And it's empowering. And I often, when I'm talking to my friends, I find myself doing it through a coaching lens, especially if I've just been talking to a client or a potential client. I will ask the same questions I would ask a client. And I was actually told years ago that I would make a good coach because of the types of questions I ask and how I help lead people to solutions, and because I'm a good listener. But in coaching, that doesn't mean that emotions are ignored. They're acknowledged and they're worked with, but they're not the end point. One of the most critical outcomes of ADHD coaching is increased self-efficacy. You start trusting yourself again. You stop outsourcing your confidence to systems that don't fit. And that is especially important in midlife, when old coping strategies stop working and external demands don't magically increase or disappear. I mean, some parts of life do become less demanding as children grow older, and especially after they move out, they have fewer needs. But there are always demands. And in my coaching, I very much emphasize accountability. I always say ADHD is a reason, it's not an excuse. You still got to do the work. I will be supportive, I will validate you, I will hold your hand, so to speak, but you got to do the work and you got to try. You can't just say, oh, I have ADHD, I can't. You have to figure out how to work with it, within the system. So now I want to talk about coaching and therapy together. They work so beautifully together. For many people, the most effective support is both. Therapy creates emotional safety and understanding. Coaching creates structure and momentum. They work best when they're not trying to do each other's jobs. A therapist might help you understand why you freeze when overwhelmed. A coach helps you design a week that reduces overwhelm from the start. A therapist might help you process grief or identity shifts. A coach helps you rebuild routines, boundaries, and decision-making in real time. And maybe with that identity shift, it helps within the current identity. One coaching question I like to ask is, who do you have to be in order to? Like, think about future you. So who do you have to be? Who do you have to become? And then help rebuild going towards that. I often work with clients who are also in therapy, and that combination, like I said, it can be incredibly powerful. The work reinforces itself instead of competing. The key is knowing what you're asking each relationship to do. And as with anything, you need clear expectations. So a few moments ago, I mentioned that midlife old coping strategies stop working and that some demands decrease as children get older, move out, etc. When you do find yourself in an empty house, you might have a new set of issues to discuss with both a therapist and a coach. That decrease in responsibility can reveal just how much the built-in routine and structure held you together as someone with ADHD. Quiet is scary. Free time is scary. Less responsibility creates space, which, if you're not used to it, or you're used to being in planning mode and on the move all the time, it's a huge adjustment. So I pulled a side-by-side comparison of therapy versus coaching from the materials from one of my ICF accredited coaching courses, and I'm going to read it to you. If you download the transcript for this podcast from my website, I'll have a screenshot in it. So therapy assumes client needs healing. Coaching presumes client is highly functional. Therapy, roots in medicine, psychiatry. Coaching, roots in business and personal growth venues. Therapy, focus on revisiting past events, past orientation, which I mentioned. Coaching, focus on actions and the future, goal-oriented. That's important. Therapy explores the root of problems. Coaching explores how to solve problems. Therapy works to bring the distressing unconscious material into consciousness, which could be very helpful. Coaching works with the conscious mind, some preconscious or unconscious automatic thoughts and beliefs. And the last one here, therapy works for internal resolution of pain and to let go of old patterns. Coaching works for solutions to overcome barriers, learn new skills, and implement effective choice. So those are very important distinctions. So let's pause and recap. Therapy helps you heal, process, and understand. Coaching helps you apply, build, and move forward. Therapy is essential when emotional safety is the priority. Emotional safety. Coaching is essential when insight isn't translating into change. We know what we have to do, but why aren't we doing it? That is a big one that comes up, especially when people talk about not being able to adult or wanting to adult better. We know what we're supposed to do, but why aren't we doing it? Coaching is not a replacement for therapy. It's a bridge between awareness and action. And I feel like if you're going to quote anything from this episode, that would be one of them. Coaching is a bridge between awareness and action. And actually, I'm really interested in your takeaways, but we'll get there. So if you're listening to this and thinking, I've done a lot of understanding, but I'm still struggling to function the way I want to, coaching might be the missing piece. I offer private ADHD coaching for women who are ready to feel grounded, clear, and supported in real life, and not just in theory. I also run Wild Minds, which is my group coaching space for professional women managing ADHD in midlife. It's structured, it's supportive, and designed for women who want community without chaos. And the next round will be starting in February 17th, 2026 is what we're in right now. So you can learn all about my coaching work at AndreaToolCoach.com. I got my 2 101 programs, I got the group program. And my offerings do change, so just always check my website is the best place. You can sign up for my newsletter there as well. If today's episode was helpful, follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss what's next. Rate it on Apple and Spotify. Like it on YouTube. Share it. Tell everybody about it. Let's spread Prime for ADHD widely. In the next episode, we'll be talking about sleep and irritability in midlife and why rest is often the first thing ADHD women lose. Thanks for listening. I've got you.